Hello, delegates and alternates. My name is Devin Avalon, Region 10 nominating member, and I'm coming to you today from beautiful Tucson, Arizona, which, as you may know, will be hosting the 2020 Region 10 CRC, which you do not want to miss. I'd like to welcome you to part one of a four-part series designed to help prepare you for the caucus and executive sessions of the upcoming CRC. Now, if you've never been to a CRC before, it can be a little bit overwhelming. That's okay. If you have any questions whatsoever after watching these videos, please don't hesitate to reach out to the nominating committee or your DRC or other regional officers. You can also always take a look at the Region Operations Manual, which can be found at www.ashrae.org. All right, so for this first installment, we're going to do a brief overview of ASHRAE's organizational structure. We're also going to look at what your role is as delegates and alternates at CRC in representing the voice of your chapter members. In part two of this video series, we're going to look at regional positions. In part three, we're going to look at society level positions, including some of the opportunities to serve on society level committees. And finally, in part four, we're going to go over honors and awards to make sure that we're all poised to recognize the efforts of our fantastic volunteer members. Okay, so without further ado, let's start with ASHRAE's organizational structure. Now, I realize that many of you are already very familiar with ASHRAE's organizational structure, but I think it's a good idea to do a quick review just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. When talking about ASHRAE's structure, I always like to start with the local chapter level, something I'm sure that all of you are very familiar with. Though each individual chapter bylaws may vary, for the most part, the chapter's board of governors consists of the chapter officers, the president, president-elect, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and other board of governor members. These positions are elected by the chapter members. Under the board are the various committee chair positions, which are either elected by the chapter members or appointed by the incoming chapter president prior to the beginning of the society year. The six main committees are membership promotion, research promotion, chapter technology transfer, student activities, Young Engineers in ASHRAE, and Government Affairs. In addition to these six, there are also a number of other very important committees. For more information on the roles and responsibilities of each of these positions, please refer to the Manual for Chapter Operations. Now, the chapter operates to serve the local area assigned members. Chapters are organized under regions. There are 15 regions throughout the world, and each region is comprised of anywhere from 7 to 22 chapters. Regions 1 through 12 cover the Americas. Region 13 primarily covers Asia. Our newest region, Region 14, predominantly covers Europe, and then the remaining chapters are covered under the region at large, which is divided into two subregions. You can find a complete list of regions and their associated chapters online at ashrae.org. In Region 10, we have 14 chapters across 4 states: California, Arizona, Nevada, and Hawaii. You can see that the regional organizational structure is very similar to that of the chapter structure. Instead of a chapter president, though, the region is led by the director and regional chair, or DRC, supported by the Regional Members Council Representative, or RMCR, and in some regions, the assistant regional chair, or ARC. Just as the chapters have chairs for the 6 main committees, the region has regional vice chairs, or RVCs, that oversee the efforts of their respective committees at the regional level. The Student Activities RVC, for example, would be responsible for working with and supporting each of the chapter's student activities chairs. In addition to the RVCs, the DRC appoints the regional historian, the regional electronic communications chair, and the regional treasurer. Finally, the regional nominating committee, consisting of the member, the alternate, and the reserve alternate, work to represent the region as candidates are brought forward to the Society Nominating Committee. We'll cover all of this in much more detail in part 2 of this video series. In Region 10, for Society Year 2018-19, the regional leadership team is shown here. Now, I just mentioned that the Nominating Committee represents the regional members on the Society Level Nominating Committee. And the same is true for the DRC, the RMCR, and the RVCs. These leaders have not only regional responsibilities, but also society-level responsibilities. And it brings us to ASHRAE's society structure. Now, we're not going to go through this entire org chart. This would be a very long video. But I do want to highlight some of the key positions that you will have a role in recommending candidates for. You can see at the very top are the members, ASHRAE members, not the board, not ASHRAE staff, but members themselves who have a voice in how our society is managed and operated. As delegates and alternates for your chapter, you are one of the voices for your members. It's your responsibility to ensure that their voices are heard. To the right, you can see the nominating committee. The Society Nominating Committee consists of members representing each of the 15 different regions, as well as a number of board-appointed members, a vice chair, and a chair. The role of the nominating committee is to evaluate and make recommendations for higher-level ASHRAE office positions, specifically the DRCs, directors at large, the vice presidents, treasurer, and president-elect. A tremendous amount of work is done by this committee to ensure that the right volunteer members are recommended. I think it's worth pointing out that the nominating committee does not report to the board. As you can see here, it reports only to the members. In fact, the regional nominating committee members, alternates, and reserve alternates are the only individuals elected directly by the delegates at CRC. We're going to get into more of that detail when we cover regional positions in Part 2. Then we have the Board of Directors, which we'll be covering in Part 3. And reporting to the board are the three councils: Members Council, Technology Council, and Publishing and Education Council. We're going to focus just on Members Council for now. You can see under Members Council are the 6 primary committees that we've already seen represented at the regional and chapter levels. As I've mentioned before, the regional vice chairs, or RVCs, all serve on their respective committees at the society level here under Members Council. The 3 councils all report to the Board of Directors. The DRC, Director and Regional Chair, serves on the Board of Directors along with the Directors at Large and the Executive Committee. You can see here the Executive Committee for the 2018-2019 Society year. Again, we're going to be covering that in Part 3. So where do you fit into all of this? Well, as I already mentioned before, as the delegates and alternates, you will represent your chapter members at the upcoming CRC, the Chapter's Regional Conference. CRC also stands for Chapter's Regional Committee, and that's you guys, led by the RMCR. When you come to CRC, it's important that you come prepared not only for the nominating caucus and executive sessions, but to present and discuss motions on behalf of your chapter. When it comes to that time, only the delegate has a vote. The alternate has voice, but no vote. It's also important that you show up on time at the first caucus meeting. If the delegate is absent or late, then the alternate becomes the delegate as the voting member for the chapter for the remainder of the CRC. When we go into our caucus session, we have 4 main tasks before us. First of all, we're going to nominate candidates for society-level positions. That's president-elect, treasurer, vice presidents, and directors at large. Secondly, we're going to nominate candidates for regional positions, typically the DRC, the RMCR, RVCs, and the nominating committee. One thing to keep in mind is because many of these positions are multi-year terms, there may only be a few positions that we really need to focus on at a specific CRC. Third, we're going to nominate candidates for various awards. And finally, we're going to be making recommendations to the incoming society president-elect, for standing committees, for society-level committees. Now, there's a lot to cover, so it's really important that you come to CRC prepared to have these discussions so our meetings will all go very smoothly. When we start discussing specific candidates, we will go into executive session. This means that everything that we say is absolutely confidential. You cannot talk to anyone ever about the discussions had during executive sessions, not even the candidates who were selected. We will be stressing this during our meetings, and all of you will be required to sign confidentiality agreements. This is important because we're going to be having some very candid, very frank discussions about our colleagues and our friends. We want to make sure that everyone in the room feels comfortable voicing their opinions without having to worry about whether or not what is said gets out. In closing, as we discuss each candidate, remember ASHRAE's fundamental nominating philosophy, and that is the office shall seek the person rather than the person seek the office. As a volunteer organization, the leaders are responsible for identifying the candidates whom they feel will do the best job. Having said that, it's sometimes difficult for the leaders to identify the right people. So if you're interested or someone you know is interested in serving, then at least make sure that that willingness to serve is known to your chapter leaders. All right, so that's all for part 1. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to the nominating committee. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in part 2.